Okay, so now what I want to do is kind of focus on the year and as well as the genre and figure out percentage-wise how they contribute to one another. Okay, so it's going to be a little bit different than the period over period type calculation. This is still going to be a divisionary type calculation, but one where it works on groups. Okay, so you'll see it as we go along here. So the first thing we'll do is go back into insert. So we're doing a new pivot table, by the way. So we're going to do insert. We're going to go to pivot table. We'll hit OK. There we go. All right. So now we're going to bring in the year. Okay, so drag that one into the rows area. There's all of our years. And then I want to bring in the genre. Right underneath it there. There we go. Now, first thing we want to do is see what they grossed year over year, or year by year, okay? So we're going to take the gross sales, bring that over into the values so that we can summarize it, and there we go. So we can see that in 2010, all the genres, all these genres right here, these totals add up to that one there, and so on and so forth. Now, that's the first one. Now, the next thing that I'd like to do is next to it, show the percentage that each one of these numbers is to the parent, all right? So what percentage is this to here? What percentage is this to here? And then later on, what percentage is this one to here? What percentage is this one to here? And so forth, okay? Now to do that, what we'll do is we'll bring in the gross sales again. Drag that in. And there it is. So now on this one, we're going to change the way it calculates. Just like we did earlier when we were talking about doing the period over period comparison, we had to change up the way that it calculated that percentage. So in this case, we'll do a double click on sum of total sales too. We'll go over here to show values as, go to where it says no calculation, and we're going to find the one called percentage of parent row total. So what percentage are each of these numbers to the parent, right, which is a year, total, right? So we'll choose that one, hit OK. So what happened? Well, Chip misclicked is what he did. All right. I'm going to go back in there, double click it. It's easy to do, easy to do. I normally start the video over, but what the heck, I'll just show you me correcting it. So I'm going to go back in, show values as, see it says show or percentage of parent column. I was meaning to say, I know I said row, but I think I just clicked on the column obviously, so we need to change that to row. Makes all the difference in the world. Hit OK, there it goes. So now we can see that action films accounted for 30% of 2010's gross sales. Pretty interesting number. Now I want to do one more of these type of calculations. This time I want to know what each one of these numbers is percentage-wise to the grand totals here at the bottom. Okay, so how are we going to do that? Well, again, believe it or not, we're going to bring in the gross sales, and that'll be the right underneath there. There it goes. There that one is. Now, we'll double click it, show values as, no calculation we'll click onto, and this one's going to be percentage of column total. All right. You could also do grand total because we only have one. Actually, the column total and the grand total are the same thing, but just to keep it sounding right and where it's understandable, column total. Okay, so percentage of column total. Hit OK, and there it goes. Not bad. So what we're saying here is that action films in 2010 accounted for 4.47% of this amount here. Okay. All right. Now we can go ahead and format these real quick, especially this column B. So I'll just do a double click on that. Go to my number format. current or number, no decimal places, comma, hit OK, hit OK, fixes that one up. The other thing too is that maybe we should change the labels up a little bit. So for this first one, okay, we're going to call that one revenue. That's easy. This one here, we'll call that one, let's say maybe percent year. And then this one over here, we'll just call that 1%. All right. Now, we'll get this all nice and clean by just clicking somewhere in it, going over to our Analyze, go to our pivot table, Options, Merge and Center, hit OK, and there you go. Now we can also like pretty it up a little bit by going over here to Design, going over to the pivot table styles, right? And we'll go into maybe the second one here, which is the medium group. I said before, this is probably the better when you're, especially when you're doing the multiple fields within the row. And I'll just pick the, we'll do the blue. So there's on the blue. And then what I can also do is maybe do some banded rows in there. That looks good. Maybe even the banded columns to make it kind of stand out a little bit better. That's up to you. Or maybe get rid of the rows and just do the columns. That looks pretty good as well. And then we can also add a blank row in between here. So what we'll do is we'll go back here to blank rows, insert blank line. There you go. Not too bad. So there is your pivot. Not looking too bad at all. Now, what I want to do next is show you how to create a graph from your pivot table, which we call a pivot chart. All right. Now you have to kind of watch out when you're doing this, because just like any other type of graphing that you would do, and by the way, we do a ton of graphs in Module 9. So the Module 9 set of videos in Excel, nothing but graphing. Okay. But the point of the matter is, in either one, if you have too much data, it gets to be looking like a big blob, and you really can't tell anything from it. The whole idea of having a graph is to make a picture of your numbers. Well, if your picture is just so cluttered with whatever in it, it's not very clear, very hard for people to understand what they're looking at, that type of thing. All right, so here's how we work this. If you've done a graph before in Excel, you probably realize that you had to do something like this, have to select the data ahead of time. Not when it comes to pivot charts, you just be somewhere in the pivot chart and that's it. All right. The next step is we go over here to the Analyze tab, and then you'll see pivot chart over to the right hand side. We'll click onto that, and then it gives you different things or different ways that you can lay this out. Now, the way it's set up right now for the first one, this is a cluster. You can kind of see, well, I'll just magnify it a little bit. You can see, because we have it broken down not only by year, but then by genre, it shows like two groupings down there on the Y or on the X-axis. All right, that doesn't look too bad. But the problem with that though is just a little. It might be too much. I don't know. We'll see what happens. The other one though would be your stacked bar. This one right here, and the stacked bar kind of does that for you. I don't know if it's going to be really much different. So I think what we'll do here, we'll start out with the cluster. We'll click on the cluster, hit OK, and there it is. All right. Now it helps if you've got room. Okay. So if you don't mind, and what we do is we just kind of move it just by kind of dragging it with that crosshair, something like that. What you could do, and I'll zoom out here a little bit too so you can see this better. So we'll zoom out, and then what you can do is drag out the from the graphic handle to the right there. And then what you'll see are all of them in there. Now, the problem with all of this is that in 2010, we've got all of these different categories, but it's not showing all of them here. It's showing like, well, what it's doing is it's showing them all as far as bars go, but it's like doing every other label, all right? So that could be a problem unless you decide that you want to maybe filter the data a little bit. Maybe you don't need to show every year or every genre. I would think maybe the genres would be more important than anything. So maybe what you want to do is create a graph for maybe just 2010. Then what we can do is we can duplicate it and put that down below there and make that for 2011, 2012, and so forth. You can do stuff like that. But I think just to kind of show you the initial one here. So what I would do, because this is not going to be, this is not very telling the way it is right now, because there's just too much data in there. I'm going to go over here to the filter. So I'm going to click on to one of the years, doesn't matter which one it is. Hit the drop down arrow over here, right? Hit the select all, choose 2010. Maybe we'll do 2010 and 2011. We'll do two. So 2010 and 2011, right? Those two. Hit OK, and there we go. Now you're able to see it all. So that would be, I guess, the big difference there. We might even be able to go in there and add another year. So we'll go back in there, maybe make that 2012 as well. Hit OK, and do something like that. But again, you know, given the size that we have, this is probably, if this is all you had, now we got the action, we have the adventure, we've got the comedy, so they're all in there, all right? But up to you how you want to do it. Now you can kind of fix this up a little bit too. Let me get over a little bit here. When you click onto the graph, the elements button will pop up here, and if you click onto that, all right, you can then go in there and say, well, what I'll do is I'll take the legend that I have here. So I go to legend, go my little arrow here, right? And tell it that I want the legend at the top. So that gives me a little bit more room to work there, kind of spreads it out a little bit. Not bad. Now what you might also notice a little bit in this is that I have a bar, a lot of space in there, and it doesn't seem like it's centered up there. And the reason why is because it's also not only graphing the revenue, it's graphing the percentage here and this percentage as well. So there's actually two other bars in each of these areas here, but they're so small. I mean, this is like almost, what, 1 billion? And this is, what, or anything. I'm just, the point of the matter is that this is, let's say, 200, almost 300 million, and this is not even one, all right? This is not even one, all right? So they're flat as a pancake in there. You can't even see them. So my thought is that maybe what I'll do is, in order to get the graph to look the way I want it to look, maybe what I'll do is I will forego the other two fields, all right? So let me just bring this up a little bit. And I'm going to get rid of the year percentage and the percentage. I'm just going to leave the revenue. So if I take off the year, just like that, take off the percentage, just like that, now we're looking good there, all right? And at that point, you might say, well, let's see if we can maybe try and go back to seeing all the years. So I'll just go back to my filter here, all right? Clear the filter and do that. And it's still a little tight there, so I think we'll just go back and just say, give me the first 3 years and be done with it. Now, the other thing, all right, that we can do is we can make the bars a little bit thicker so they kind of stand out more, okay? So what we're going to do is we're going to scroll over here just a little bit, click onto that, and then what we're going to do is we're just going to kind of point to any one of these bars and double click it, okay? Now that opens up this area here, and we've got this series overlap and gap width for what we've just selected there. And what we can do is we can take this gap width. If I decrease it, less gap between each of the bars, see? So I bring it down to about right there. There I got something that looks a little bit more normal than usual, all right? And then the other thing I can do is I can go over to this little paint bucket here, go down into the fill area, and tell it to vary the colors by point. So I click onto that, then I'm going to get different colors for everything, see? So then I can just kind of close out of that, close out of there, and there we go. That's not looking too good, mainly because of the legend now, right? So what we can actually do with this is, let me just bring this back a little bit here, is click on the graph, make it just a little bit taller, and there we go. Make it a little bit wider if you want, something like that. Not too bad. And then one last thing with this, do I really need to have a legend? I mean, I can see the genres, I can see the years. I don't really need to have this. It's just taking up a lot of room anyway. Hit my little plus up there for the elements. Take off the legend. Voila. Looks a lot better. One more thing, and this might not look the best, but I'm just going to kind of show it to you anyway. If you want to actually see the values that each of these bars are, without having to really kind of look at the top and look across to see what the value is, what you can do is you can actually click on to the little plus here. We can actually go to where it says data labels, click onto that, all right? Then what you can do is go over into that little arrow and tell it more options. Now, the reason for it is I can now take each of those values that you see there that are selected. I can go over to the size and properties here, go to the alignment, and tell it that I want the text direction to go at 270 degrees or rotate the way you see it there. And that makes all the difference. And there you go. You can also go back to here and tell it that you want to put the label, now in this case it's saying outside end. If you said inside end, it would do that, but what would happen is that some of these would get kind of, it just doesn't look right because of the shorter bars there. So probably the outside end looks the best. And then while they're still selected, we can go ahead and make them bold, make it stand out. And then you can just close that up. The other thing you can do is we can go here to the title and put in there something like, you know, top 3 years or whatever, all right, for a title. Enter that in. There it is. You can go ahead over to the Home tab, make it bold, make it a little bit bigger. Over on the side here, we can click onto that, make it bold, make it stand out, make it bigger. Go down here, click onto that, make it bold, to make it stand out, make it a little bit larger. There you go. Not bad. And then over here on the side, we see those numbers, but what are they? I mean, they're revenue, right? But it'd be nice maybe for it to say, you know, have some sort of a label that kind of depicts that it's revenue, dollars, whatever. So what you can do is you can click on this little plus here, you know, back to the elements, go to where it says the axis titles, click on that little arrow and tell it that you want to go with the primary horizontal, or I'm not, primary vertical, I mean, which is along the side there, right? Kind of like what we used to call the y-axis. And once you've done that, and you're clicked onto it, we can just type in something like, I would call it maybe, we'll call it Canadian. Okay, type there. You have to spell with an EN, remember, okay? So Canadian, and it's going to be Canadian pesos, all right? So Canadian pesos, it can happen. Hit the enter key there, make it bold, make it a little bit bigger, and there we go. So I think we got a pretty good looking graph there. So again, that's what you can do with your data once you have, you know, created the pivot. Again, as you can see too, there are some shortcomings when you've got a lot of data. So usually you want to confine your graphs, your charts, whatever, to a smaller amount of data. But I just thought I'd show this one to you anyway. So hopefully you can start using some of this stuff. I appreciate you watching the video. Take care.